Well, we are now in the geophysical laboratory of the research vessel Minerva Uno, and our objective here is to study what has happened here off the harbor of Gioia Tauro in the July of 1977. The main thing is that at that time we had a big landslide and a tsunami which destroyed part of the harbor. So before the cruise, what the research team did was to collect all the available data. Then we started the cruise and we started to collect data. By collecting data, we perform new high-resolution bathymetry to have a very detailed map of the seafloor, and also we perform some seismic profiles. We use several techniques in order to understand how is the structure of the sediments below the seabed, where the landslide took place and how it evolved with the time. And what we also use here, a remotely operated vehicle, what we call it as ROV, through which we look at the sea, so we have an optical contact.
This time we are planning to go directly within the canyon axis, and then we will navigate to find if there are evidence of failure or like blocks or something that can indicate a landslide happened in this area, because this area has been indicated as one of the sites where all the material that was dredging from to build the harbor, and some engineering that were working during the construction of the harbor told us that there was dumping within the canyon in this area. So if possibly the landslide happened here, we are looking for some evidence of this.
Well, tsunamis are one of the major natural hazards that we face, at least in the Mediterranean, but not only. There have been many tens of tsunamis in the last several hundreds of years. Our aim is to understand how this was triggered. Triggering mechanism was a landslide which occurred just off the harbor, just off the entrance of the harbor.
In this sense, in the Mediterranean Sea, the risk due to the landslide generated tsunamis is very high. In Nice in '79, they had a tsunami that killed several people during the construction of a harbor. Just 2 days before, we had a tsunami in Gioia Tauro. And this tsunami in Gioia Tauro was exactly the same of Nice, but we were lucky enough to not have casualties. So we only destroyed part of the harbor that was under construction, and we lost some bulldozer or some caterpillar. So Gioia Tauro harbor is built exactly at the canyon head of the Gioia Canyon.
And the main hypothesis for how this landslide was triggered is that the material which was dredged from the harbor in order to deepen the harbor basin was deposited outside the harbor, but on top of the head of a canyon. A canyon is a steep submarine valley. So this artificial deposit was dumped right on top of the steep slopes, the steep cliffs which surround the canyon, and it was not sitting stable. I mean, the situation was really critical. The load from the sediments, the dumped sediments, was big enough, the weight was big enough to make the whole slope to collapse. So this is a really big landslide which also triggered the tsunami.
At the moment, we have collected more or less 5 ROV in that area, and also different sampling with the core, with the dredge, in order to characterize this deposit. But the problem is that these deposits are partially covered by mud, so it is very difficult to better understand what is the nature of this block that is fundamental for the reconstruction of the events. It is important to remember that it is one of the seismically active area in the Italy.
Before the cruise, we thought that the main scar that could be responsible for the landslide would be this one in the left flank.
That depression there.
Yeah, the depression there. That still is
Suspect.
suspect. But now the most probable part is this one, just the head of the canyon.
Yeah. All the blocks have remained there. They were from the collapse, the initial collapse in '77, and they remain there, and the rest of the material has been eroded by turbidites and has gone down to the depth.
We are sure that these canyons are active because we see the migrating bed forms, so for sure there is some activity. But when we go there with the ROV, we see only bed.
Well, anyway, we know that we had a major change in the bathymetry after the tsunami of '77 along the head of the canyon.
Yes.
So we are almost sure, or pretty sure, that the landslide or a part of the landslide occurred here.
Yeah.
So this is the best candidate for the tsunami.